government suspends Justice Minister German Galushenko amid an ongoing corruption probe in the energy sector. Galushenko, who previously served as energy minister, faces investigative actions, the ministry has confirmed. Deputy Minister of Justice for European Integration, Lyudmila Suhak, assumes the minister's duties during the suspensions. Galushenko describes the move as a civilized and correct scenario and vows to defend himself legally, emphasizing he will cooperate fully and prove his position. Authorities have not clarified whether these actions are directly linked to the National Anti-Corruption Bureau's energy corruption investigation, but sources indicate a possible connection. The probe targeted alleged irregularities and potential misuse of power within Ukraine's energy industry. NABU has released a recorded conversation reportedly capturing Galushenko speaking with suspects involved in the case. Adding weight to the ongoing investigation, officials emphasized that the suspension is a precautionary measure to ensure transparency and prevent interference in the inquiry. The move marks a significant shakeup in Kyiv's government as President Zelensky's administration continues its crackdown on corruption. Now we move on to Pacific. Australia and Indonesia have announced a new security treaty, pledging to consult one another if either country is threatened. The announcement came in Sydney, where Prime Minister Anthony Albanese hosted Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto during a visit to Australian naval base. Albanese has called it a major extension of past agreements, committing both nations to regular security dialogue and closer defense cooperation. President Prabowo said the treaty reflects both countries' determination to safeguard peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific while maintaining Indonesia's non-aligned foreign policy. Let's listen into what both leaders have said.
This treaty will commit Australia and Indonesia to consult at a leader and ministerial level on a regular basis on matters of security, to identify and undertake mutually beneficial security activities, and if either or both countries' security is threatened, to consult and consider what measures may be taken, either individually or jointly, to deal with those threats.
We, I think, concluded an important agreement, an important treaty between Australia and Indonesia, committing ourselves to close cooperation in the defense and security fields. And I believe in the good neighbor policy. Good neighbors are essential. Good neighbors will help each other in times of difficulties.
Australia's Foreign Minister Penny Wong has said the treaty modeled on a 1995 agreement is expected to be signed next year, marking another step in Canberra's push to strengthen regional security ties. Now for this discussion, we welcome Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Satoru, for joining us again. Now, looking at this, how might the new Australia-Indonesia Security Treaty shift the balance of power between in Indo-Pacific region, and how will it affect the Indonesia and Australia's relationship moving forward?
It's a very important milestone because Australia taking share the security of the South Pacific. They are the regional great power. At the same time, Indonesia has the potential to be the very influential great power in the Southeast Asia. So two countries agree the defense cooperation agreement is a very important milestone. Indeed, this is very important because two countries faced some crisis in the past. For example, the East Timor crisis, or the other ones, bombing in the Bali. This terrorism killed many Australians. So that's why at that time the two countries faced a crisis and the relation has a little bit deteriorated. That's why this is a process to recovering. The final reach this agreement is a very important milestone. But at the same time, indeed, the interests of the two countries are a little bit different. In case of the Australia concerned about China's expansion to South Pacific, and so Australia tried to deal with. Indonesia also concerns China's expansion, but at the same time, Indonesia is a little bit non-alignment stance. So Australia is a U.S. ally and cooperate with other Quad member or AUKUS members. These are the framework against China. But Indonesia's stance, Indonesia want to be a little bit non-alignment stance. They want to be independent. So that's why a little bit different even if they agree. But the interesting thing is, because of the non-alignment policy, Indonesia hasn't agreed any bilateral security agreement in the past. This is the first time. So that's why this is a game-changing, important agreement. Even if Indonesia do not have the will to be allied with the U.S. side countries, but at the same time, Indonesia try to show their influence to the other region by signed agreement with other country, and as a responsible great power, they try to show their influence. That is very good thing, I think. So that's why this is important milestone. Thank you.
Do you think that this could have any implications towards Australia and Indonesia's individual or separate relationship with China and the United States?
Indeed, because Indonesia, there are many choke points. China is crossing this choke point to enter the Indian Ocean. For example, the Chinese submarine, Chinese naval ship going to the Indian Ocean through the choke point of the Indonesia and Australia. This year, the Chinese naval ships fleet came to the coast of the Australia and surrounding the Australia. The course of their running is surrounding Australia. So that's why China has a will to expand their naval presence in this region. In this case, if Australia and Indonesia agree, of course, anytime they can check the choke point, anytime choke the choke points, that could happen. So that's why the disagreement is a very important milestone who take charge in this region. So even if China expand the influence, of course, the regional country, they take their responsibility with the connection between Pacific side and the Indian Ocean side. So that's why, indeed, they are, both of them, both of the Indonesia, both of the Australia, both are very important country to decide the fate of this connection. So that's why this is indeed very important.
Thank you for emphasizing that, Dr. Satoru Nagao. Always pleasure learning from you. Thank you very much. Now we move on to China. In Beijing, China's President Xi Jinping has met with Spain's King Felipe, marking the first state visit by Spanish monarch to China in 18 years. Xi has emphasized China's desire to deepen ties with Spain, seeking to boost both nations' global influence. Spain has been actively strengthening its economic and diplomatic ties with China, despite tensions between the EU and Beijing over tariffs, particularly in the electric vehicle sector. Madrid, led by Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, has worked to position itself as a key investment hub, especially in industries like green tech and automobiles. Spain is also China's top supplier of pork, but retaliatory tariffs have put the trade under strain. Amid these challenges, King Felipe's subtle diplomacy continues to foster trust and cooperation between these two nations. Now we move on to our next news. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he has an obligation to sue the BBC over the way of section of his speech that was edited in a Panorama documentary. Speaking to the media, he has said that his 6th January 2021 speech had been butchered in the way it was presented had defrauded viewers. It is the first time Trump has spoken publicly about the matter since his lawyers wrote to the BBC and said that he would sue for $1 billion in damages unless the corporation issues a retraction, apologies, and compensates him. Let's in fact listen into what President Trump has said.
Are you going ahead and suing the BBC?
Well, I guess I have to. You know, why not? Because they defrauded the public, and they've admitted it, and their top echelon.
Director General and the CEO
This
both
is
resigned.
within one of our great allies. You know, this is supposedly our great ally, BBC. The government has a chunk of that one, I guess, but that's a pretty sad event. They actually changed my January 6th speech, which was a beautiful speech, which was a very calming speech, and they made it sound radical, and they actually changed it. What they did was rather incredible. They're showing me the results later on, the results of what they did, how they butchered it up. But it was very dishonest, and the head man quit, and a lot of the other people.
Meanwhile, British Culture Minister Lisa Nandy has said that a review into the BBC will start before the end of this year. Nandy has also stated that the government will ensure that BBC remains independent and accountable for the public it serves. Let's listen in.
We will imminently begin the Charter Review, which will set the terms of the BBC for the next decade, and through it we will collectively write the next chapter of the BBC's story. Together we will ensure the BBC is sustainably funded, commands the public's trust, and continues to drive growth, good jobs, skills and creativity across every region and nation of the UK. In an era in which trust is fraying and truth is contested across our nation, it will ensure the BBC remains fiercely independent and is genuinely accountable to the public it serves. We'll publish a green paper and launch a public consultation shortly, and I will set out more detail to the House in the coming weeks.
Now we move on to Middle East. Turkey's defense ministry has stated that 20 soldiers were killed in the crash of a military aircraft in Georgia, as inspectors continued to search for clues on what caused the NATO members' cargo plane to go down. The C-130 plane had taken off from Azerbaijan for Turkey and crashed in Georgia. Turkey has not yet provided any reason for the incident, which is the country's deadliest military accident since 2020. Meanwhile, Turkey has also stated that Turkish and Georgian authorities have begun inspections at the crash site and the Signaku municipality of Georgia's Kakheti district. That's all.